Why, hello to you. Welcome. We got an exciting episode today. We're going to review it. I've been putting in the work here. I've been researching like crazy. I made a chart of every possible and potential best camera for video entering 2019. What are our best options right now for filming simple videos like this for YouTube or handheld vlogging your boring life? We got it all covered today. We're going to go through the best options, what kind of prices and weight are the main things that I've listed in this chart. You can download it for free down below. I'll probably keep adding to it, but let's find out what are the best cameras for video right now heading into 2019. I swear to God, Sony, if you release that A7iii right after this video, I will slap you. That will suck. That will ruin the whole chart. Damn you.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So what I've done here, I've went through each company and I've found the best cameras that I believe are the best for video right now. And we list some pros and cons. We got the price of each. Obviously those are going to change over time, but you'll get a rough idea of what the price is and the weight for each camera. And then also I went through all the best lenses that I think will be best for video. So we're going wide angle on this, up to 35 roughly. I think if you're making YouTube videos and you're filming yourself, 35mm is your cutoff point. After that, you're getting too far away from the camera. You can't see your flippy screen if you're so lucky to have one. Right now we're at 38mm. I can see the screen, but I can't touch it. I can't touch it. I wish I could touch the focus, but I can't. So we got the weight of all the lenses and then the combination of each lens and body weight and price to compare to other situations. So we'll compare things like the A7iii with 16 to 35mm versus the aps-c equivalent focal ranges. Is there much of a weight difference or price difference? And let's get into it. So let me first just briefly explain this chart, and then we'll get an idea of what the hell we're looking at. It's so colorful and enjoyable. So basically we got Sony. This is all Sony stuff right now, all their best stuff, and I did that for each company. So the first section is the cameras and their price and their weight. Are they in-body stabilized, and do they have a flippy screen? Eventually I'll probably add more categories. The Sony A5100 is the only one without a mic jack, and that will strike it from the heavens down to the depths of Satan's bosom, where they belong. So then lenses, we got all the best lenses in my opinion, and feel free to, if you have a lens that I didn't mention here or a camera, make your case down below and I'll consider adding it to the list, and we'll keep growing this thing. But some of them are manual focus only, and that's not a terrible thing depending on the focal length. I have trouble with the 50 because I have to be so far away I can't see myself in the screen, and I gotta adjust. It's like 35 is doable, and they can be beneficial. Nobody likes seeing focus hunting. And then down here we have the actual camera with lens price and weight. And then in green I list, these are like the best options in my opinion, and then yellow is like a close second place. You might consider it. So let's head through this list. Affiliate links. How am I gonna do that? Affiliate links for all that shit? I'm gonna be here for hours. I'll try to put affiliate links for everything, and please do, if you're gonna buy something, either use one of my links or use one of your favorite YouTubers' links. I don't care who you use, just spread it. Don't just buy it on your own. Try to give back. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and some of us need to make money sometimes. I like to eat food. It's fun, and the Thai massage is here. Very healing to the body. So thank you so much for anybody who's ever bought an affiliate link product through my links or anybody else's link. Go just find your favorite YouTuber, buy through his link. I don't care. Spread the love, my friend. So keep in mind here, this is for video, this is for vlogging, filming yourself, filming the town. It's like, that's what this is for. YouTube creation mainly. And obviously the first winner, just right away. Don't even bother looking elsewhere. Get that Sony X3000. I mean, it's lightest, it has the most stable image. As long as your light's pretty good, it's gonna look the best, and it's the most convenient. Yes, you will get a more cinematic look with the mirrorless, but it's heavy as shit, and you have to ask yourself if you want to commit to that kind of thing. And it's much harder to film in public with this kind of camera because it's bigger. People start looking at you more. It's like, what's he doing? Whereas when you have the little Sony, you're just like, people like think you're recording something, but they're not sure what's happening. They're like, oh, I guess he's doing that for some little thing. But when you have the big camera out, you can't look away. So Sony X3000, still better than the GoPro in my opinion, just because GoPro falls apart in low light. Their codec doesn't seem as good. I wish Sony would release the X4000, but they haven't. So GoPro's good and it's more stable in good light, but low light it starts shaking like robots dancing, and it's terrible. So the Sony A5100, I'd probably just skip that one. The only benefit is it's so light. It's 283. It's one of our lightest cameras here, and the fact is it has no mic jack, so you have to have a super wide angle lens so you can hold it really close to you. If you have that and a little wind muff on top, you could do it, but the lens has to be stabilized or you have to have a gimbal. So it's not the best option, but if you're just starting out, it's got decent autofocus and a flip up screen. If you were getting that, you'd have to get the 10-18 f4. So we're talking $1296 for that lens and camera combo, and it only weighs 508 grams. Now the Sony A6500, while it is still a good option, I would put it off and wait for that A7000, see what's happening in that field. It's still a good camera. It's just, I'm not convinced that Sony knows how to do in-body stabilization well, and I don't understand it. They have the best lens stabilization possible in their camcorders, the Boss system. Coolest name too, it's Boss level stabilization. Bio-automatic, that's not how you spell automatic. Bio-octopus steady system. It's the best. So I don't know why they don't do that in their mirrorless lenses. I don't know, but when I see the combination of A6500, which is stabilized, plus the 10-18 f4, which is also stabilized, it's still shaky as shit. So, I don't know. You might need a gimbal for that one. We got zebras coming in. Safari over here. If you want to step yourself up to full frame within the Sony universe, the best choice is obviously going to be the A7 III. Nobody needs an A7R III for making videos, and the A9 is also overkill. A7 III is where you want, and in my opinion, if you're hand holding without a gimbal, you have to have that 16-35 f4 because it's the only stabilized wide angle lens. So that's your best option. You may not get a super blurry background, but if you have a gimbal though, that opens you up to the 24 1.4 or the 18 2.8. Either of those could be good. The 24 you'll have to hold farther away. I find people vlogging with that 24 f1.4 to look just so stupid. It's way too blurry. It doesn't look right when you're vlogging. You don't film at f1.4. So the baddest, if you're only gonna use it for handheld vlogging stuff, I think that's the better choice, but you need a gimbal or a Steadicam, and we'll compare those at the end, oh my god. So moving on to Canon, it's not easy to recommend anybody use anything made by Canon just because you know they don't put their full effort forward, and that irks me. It's just like you're holding back, and I hate that. But honestly, they do have some good options. The M50 and the SL2, very similar. If you're debating on both of those, first of all, they both kind of suck. The only real difference is the lenses are different, although you can adapt the S lenses to the M50, and the SL2 does not have digital stabilization. It sucks anyway, but it could help in certain situations, panning and shit. But if you start walking with it, you get weird demons. So if you go with the M50, I would get that 11-22 for vlogging. It is stabilized, so it'll be decent, and it's pretty cheap and light. I would get the 22 f2 For this kind of video, you get a slight blurry background, 35mm equivalent, no stabilization, so don't pick it up. The problem with me recommending an SL2 or 80D, I don't like any of the aps-c lenses that Canon makes. I think they're shit. There's nothing to look forward to. The 10-18 is decent for vlogging. It's pretty good stabilization actually, but once you want to sit down and get a little blurry background in your life, they have nothing. They have some longer focal length stuff and you can use the big full frame glass on it, but honestly I wouldn't even go there. Don't even bother with it. I would get the M50 first. Just know that the audio preamps aren't very good, and that's a super key. Sony is very good with their audio preamps. You plug a mic right into it, it sounds pretty good. Canon has some weird glitchy background noise. If you're listening to headphones, you really notice it. If you have some background music playing, you're probably not going to notice, but Canon's not known for their preamps, although the EOS R has improved them, and that's where we're headed right now. If you're debating between the EOS R and the 6D2, I did make a video comparing them, and in my opinion, the 6D2, the codec is just too terrible to really do. The 1080p is like line skipping 1080p from 1974, and it's not worth filming yourself with. But you can get decent looking facial expressions. It clears your skin nice, so if you have acne, that's how you clear it. Get a 6D2. And it's actually a little lighter than the EOS R when you add in that adapter. So looking at the lenses, the 20mm f2.8 sounds super exciting, but is not stabilized, and neither of these cameras have stabilization, so you'll have to use the digital stabilization or a gimbal, and you'll have to test that out. I don't know what the focus is like on that lens, but I love that focal length, 20. It sounds like a good lens. The 24 is stabilized, so that might be something, and it's lighter, so that could be an ultimate combo with either the Canon or the 6D. If I was sitting down for this kind of video, I'd probably go with that Sigma 24 1.4. No stabilization, and it's heavy, so you don't lift it. But for this kind of video, I think that would look phenomenal. The Canon 24 is like twice the cost, and I'm pretty sure the Sigma focuses decently enough. Maybe not with the Canon R adapter, and that is the big debate. The 6D2 will autofocus great with the EF lenses, but the Canon R doesn't seem to. So you have to wait for the RF lenses, and there's not many right now. They're at the bottom here, and if I had to choose, it would be that 35 1.8 because it is stabilized. That is phenomenal. And for this video, it would be perfect. It would actually look amazing. I wish I had it for this video. It would look better than this, and it would autofocus good. And it's pretty light. So you could do the hand-holding. You'd have to have a really long tripod for that though. 35mm is too tight to be hand-holding. It's right there. It's just gonna be your face. And that's it. That's not good enough. But if you have it on a long tripod, that will work. And then the 16 to 35, also stabilized. Very good option, I think, for hand holding. And the Tamron, if you're a bodybuilder and you got the guns of Mexico, then yeah, we're looking at 1880 grams for the adapter on the EOS R and 1875 for the 6D2. That's heavy. Don't overestimate your strength before getting that lens, but it does sound exciting because it's 2.8 and stabilized. So there are some options in the Canon field of life. I would probably lean towards the EOS R for future proofing, and then eventually they will release lenses, but I wouldn't buy into it right now until they release something better. Now Nikon is actually pretty intriguing. That stabilization is much better than the Sony. It's actually usable. Handheld walking is good. I wish they had a flippy screen, but they don't. But other than that, and their autofocus is like kind of not super reliable. It's somewhat dependable, but you don't really know what you're gonna get. And if you adapt Nikon F lenses on, it makes the sound like crunching glass or something. It's just all your lenses become much louder and they don't focus as good. So there's some amazing options, but I don't know how they're going to perform focus wise. All I know is they have a 20mm f1.8 Z mount lens on their roadmap. It's coming. And I think that will be your ideal scenario vlogging lens, and for this kind of video. That's your one in everything lens. We just don't know what the specs are going to be like, how heavy it's going to be, how much it's going to cost. Will it have stabilization? I don't know. So right now, if the adapted lenses work with autofocus, you'd be hard pressed to not get one of those 20mm, either 2.8 or 1.8 lenses, depending on how much weight you want to save. The 1.8 is not that much heavier, so that gives me hope for the future of Nikon. They might actually make a decent lens for that Z system. If it was me buying this Z Loser 6, I'd go with the 35 1.8 Z lens. I wouldn't take my chances with the adapted lenses, and it's not too bad. 145, 1045, what's the Canon? The Canon with 35 is a little lighter, a lot lighter, almost 100 grams, 80 grams more. So, and what's going to be more stable? The in-body stabilization of the Z6 with no lens stabilization, or the Canon lens stabilization with no body? But then the Canon can turn on digital, but so can Nikon. I would love to see that comparison side by side, both with the 35 1.8, see what looks better. I'd probably lean towards the Canon R in that situation, just for that flippy screen. God bless you, flippy screen, I love you. Feed me. Now Fuji has some very confusing options, and I will say this, just beware of spec sheets. 1080p 60p is not the same in every camera. They're very misleading stats. My favorite site right now is DP Review's video comparison chart. So you can look up like almost every camera and compare the video quality side by side. And if you look at the XT100 quality next to the XT3 1080p, the XT100 looks terrible, and the autofocus isn't as good, and the stepping auto exposure is not good in my opinion, but it does have the flippy screen. Damn you. I can't recommend it though. I saw a comparison, XT100 versus M50, and the M50 just slaughtered it, and the M50 is not even a very good camera. So just leave the XT100. And if you're debating between the XT3 and the XH1, I will say this, the XH1's only advantage is the stabilization sensor. Everything else is worse. It's bigger, it's heavier. That's not a good thing. It's a fat camera that's slow to autofocus, heavy, and more expensive, and pretty much like all the codecs aren't as good, doesn't do 4K 60p, not that anybody needs that in their life. And then it just doesn't do as good things. It doesn't look as good, it's not as sharp. It's a bad investment in 2018 in my opinion. I would go with the XT3, but then you're gonna have to worry about stabilization. And so the fix to that is, if you're gonna vlog 10-24 f4, it is stabilized. Or even the kit lens, if you have a tripod and you're holding it far away, that has really good stabilization, and it's like a 27mm on the wide end. That's good enough if you're holding it far away, but if you're holding it in your hand, it's too tight. It's too tight, so don't even think about it. So you might want to get that kit lens. I don't know if I was buying into the Fuji system, that would be my biggest obstacle. Would I get that kit lens or just the body? Because I probably wouldn't use it. I'd want the 10-24 and the 16 1.4 for this kind of video. And if you had a gimbal, just get rid of the 10-24, live off that 16 1.4, you're good to go. You're good to go. How much is that? 914 grams, that's pretty light. Well, you add in the weight of that gimbal, you're shaking. And I put that 14 2.8 as a maybe option, just because it's lighter and it's a little wider, but you get that 2.8. That's not good. If I'm being honest with you, for some reason, Fuji is the most exciting to me. They're just exciting. Like, my instinct is saying go with Fuji. Like, just the lenses are good, the cameras are amazing. I just wish they had a flippy screen and stabilization, but I could get around it. I could use the app for this kind of video, and then out in the field, eventually you would get used to the exposure settings, what you need to be at. Some of these wide lenses sound like they'd be really good, manual focus, but without a flippy screen, manual focusing for vlog work is not going to work, I don't think. I don't think so. Unless you like somehow manage to get your setting right and then you mark it on the lens and you know exactly where it's going to be at all times at this length, it's possible. But when I manual focus on this, I need to see myself. So the general rule is manual focused lens only on a flippy screen camera. They go together like rice and milk. Those don't go together. Now my beloved Panasonic camera. We're still filming today with it. Panasonic GH5, we got the NIKON 25mm f/0.95 lens with the wide angle adapter, turning it into a 38mm f/0.95 lens. It's a pretty phenomenal setup. I mean, we have no lights going on, so don't judge it by this quality. I have a lamp here and the window is changing light from over there. But in general, the stabilization is amazing on these cameras, and that's the reason you get it. They can't autofocus worth a damn, but the stabilization is worth it. You have to ask yourself, what's more irritating? Shaky footage or like going out of focus sometimes? They're both irritating, but if your footage is always shaky, that's more off-putting to me. So sometimes it'll hunt for sure, and you're gonna wanna lock it down. Use the app. I mean, that's one benefit. You can just tap on your face with these, just boom. Not on a manual focus lens, unfortunately, so I've never got the pleasure to do that. But if you want, you sit down here, tap yourself, and then it's locked. It's not hunting. Then you got yourself a great camera. If your lens is wide enough to where you're holding it like right here, and then you can reach the touch screen and tap it, and it stays, then you're good to go. My problem is, on this lens, I have to have it way further out, and then I can't reach the touch screen to tap it. So that's why you have to go with like the 8-18. If you're filming on the wide end there, you could technically just tap your face, it locks, and then you're in focus, and then you have a super stabilized image, and like that's the ultimate option right there. It's cheap, it's light. You can't beat that. You really can't. It's just kind of annoying. That 12mm 1.4, I don't think you'll be able to reach it. You will not, unless you get a stick of some sort. If you know of something, just you have a little stick and you can touch that touch screen and tap on your face and lock it, you'd be good to go. I need to get that in my life. I want that. I also want a claw. Some sort of claw that I can just grip onto my lens right here and stay here and focus from it. Just stay here. Focus with my claw. So if you have any links for those two things, a toucher and a claw, post them down below and I will delete your comment. Okay. So in my opinion, all three of these lenses are good. The 15 1.7 might be the sweet spot actually, as long as you're on a longer tripod. In your hand it's too tight, but you extend it out, that 15mm will actually look pretty decent. And it's a 1.7 and it's only 115 grams and it's pretty cheap. So a G85 setup, 620 grams total. That's actually lighter than the Laowa. That's phenomenal, and it'll look much better too, less distortion. So I would probably lean towards that. I might even get that lens for this system, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna see how this whole thing pans out. But the 8-18 looks like the best wide angle lens, and the Panasonic 12 1.4 for this style video, amazing. And if you have a long tripod, it would work, but not in your hand. It's too tight. 24, I don't like that look at all. And the only reason I didn't mention this one is just because I think it won't focus as good on a Panasonic camera. I can't guarantee that, but I've tested it and it looked a little wobbly with Panasonic stabilization, whereas with Olympus's in-body stabilization, they work better together and it's super smooth. So that's a lens I would recommend for the Olympus system. As for which Panasonic camera to get, the G85 is the lightest and cheapest, but it has the worst autofocus. But if you use those life hacks that I pointed out with your stick and the claw, then G85 is the best option. Then I would probably lean towards the G9 for YouTube, just because it has better stabilization. It's lighter and cheaper than the GH5. The GH5 has much better codecs, all the 10-bit stuff. Do you need that? I don't know. If you're totally into that and you want the best quality possible, I'm thinking of it just because I might get a green screen again one day, and 10-bit apparently is much better for that. It cuts you out cleaner. So GH5, you can't go wrong with either three of those. The GH5S, only for this style video where you're locked on a tripod because it has no stabilization, or you're on a gimbal. I don't think it's worth the quality upgrade. Nobody's going to see it, and your life is going to be worse because you don't have the amazing stabilization that Panasonic is known for. So it's not worth the increase in quality, in my opinion. Depending on what you do. If you're doing paid work, commercials and shit, then alright, go nuts. But this is YouTube here. Have a little fun in your life. One super intriguing lens to me is this Voigtlander 10.5mm f/0.95. It'd be a 21mm equivalent. It'd be super stable. You'd get a blurry background whenever you needed it. It's just a little heavy and it's a little pricey. Is there an ant on me? How dare you, ant? I think that lens would be phenomenal though. I've seen a couple videos. It looks fantastic, but it is manual focus only. But you could do it. Handheld, you could focus on yourself and then you're locked on. You don't have to worry about Panasonic's crappy autofocus. It's just a little heavy. We're talking 1091 grams here just for the G85. GH5 1311. You're pushing up into that Tamron lens area. Holy shit. That brings us to our last company, and that is Olympus. And they are coming out with that EM1X soon. We don't know what that's going to be like, but it's going to be heavy and sports shooter oriented, so it's probably not going to be the best YouTuber's camera. I bet they remove that flippy screen too. So right now the EM1 Mark II is the best option. The EM5, just the quality of the 1080p goes down. It's not as good. If I was getting a vlogging lens, that 7-14 2.8 might be ideal. It's just a pretty heavy combination, 1100 grams. I mean, you're pushing your way up into Sony full frame territory. So that's a bit nuts, but the 17 1.2, if you had a long tripod, it would be doable. That's like 35mm equivalent, 34mm. So I don't know, I'm not super keen on Olympus. I would lean Panasonic. So last thing I want to mention before we get out of here, stabilization. And that's the key to a good video, especially handheld. Yes, we can lock ourselves off on a tripod and be fine, but personally, I enjoy talking to a camera when I'm hand holding it. It just feels more personal and it's easier to edit. I find when I finish my thought and my thought is done, then I switch hands. And I find that so much easier to edit because sometimes I mess up my take and I don't say the right thing, and I can see as I'm editing, okay, this speech pattern changes, and then I look ahead to where my camera switches to the other side and I know it's the one right before that. I got it right there. So it makes it easier to edit. That's something to think about. But when it comes to stabilization, Panasonic and Olympus are king. Sony is shit. They're absolute shit. From what I'm seeing, every video I've ever seen from a Sony handheld, it's shaky. I don't like it. Maybe they will improve it on the A7000. That's what the rumor says. They're going to make a bigger body with better image stabilization inside. So it's possible. But from what I'm seeing, Fuji is better than Sony. Nikon is better than both. Canon, honestly, their digital is not too terrible. It has its moments, but when you're walking, it does get weird. In my opinion, this should be a huge focus for you. If you're filming YouTube videos, especially if you're doing hand holding, you have to have good stabilization. So you either lean towards those cameras that have good stabilization, either in the lens or the body, or you get an actual gimbal. And that's where we have, here's my two options for you. We got the Moza Air Cross. The reason I picked that one is because I think it's the lightest gimbal there is. So post it down below if I'm wrong, and if you found a lighter one. It doesn't have the hugest payload, but it's perfect for what we're talking about here. With a decent lens and a wide angle, small light, that would be optimal. And then there's the actual, I just found out about these. Somebody left a comment, thank you so much. And there's these steady cams, and they're pretty small actually. It's like a tabletop tripod, and they look decent. I don't know how heavy. This one is 450 grams, but that's without the weights. And then it can weigh up to 1150 grams with all the weights. So it depends. The lighter your camera is, the less weights you're going to need. This might be a fantastic option. It might get a little awkward because it's long. You're holding it up here and then it's hanging down. So like if I'm filming over here by my bed, that might not work so well. And I've never tried it for vlogging, but I've seen somebody do it and it looked decent. It was stable. So you could put the Fuji XT3 on there with a possible good lens, that 60mm f1.4, have it on a Steadicam. It's like you got something. You got something. I'm not sure it's far enough away because the handle is basically right where the camera is, so you don't get much extra reach. Whereas an electronic gimbal, you can tilt it out and get some extra reach. So I'd probably lean towards the electronic. I thought I found a life hack in the Steadicam, but I think it's a little awkward and electronic will be better. So Moza Aircross, and if you have a better one, post it down below because I'm thinking of it. So let me know if you found that helpful, and do share your opinions on what you think is the best YouTuber's camera right now to film yourself with, hand holding and stabilized on a tripod. I think these are the best options, and hopefully something new comes out soon, because still, as you can see here, there's no perfect camera. We don't have the stabilization and flippy screen and full frame goodness and light body. I don't even need 4K. I just want a super stable image, flippy screen so it's usable, and then some autofocus that I can rely on. That's pretty much all you need. And none have all three. The trifecta doesn't exist. Unless you count Canon's stabilized lenses with their system, then we might be talking in the future when they release a wide angle one. So we'll see. But I think we're done here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.